This is John McEntee here with the Rock Fantasy Files, and we're here with Sydney Taylor, Alex Bouks, and of course Doug Aldrich from the Dead Daisies. I first got to know him from Dio when I seen him play on the Killing the Dragon tour, and of course Whitesnake he's played in the past. So definitely done some amazing, legendary stuff. And actually, um, I know I speak for Alex too. It's one of our favorite current guitar players out there. Um, just really love the old school feeling. And I know for myself, when I first seen him play with Dio on the Killing the Dragon tour, I was really impressed with the way that he was able to mix in his own style and but still keep the integrity of those songs. And since then, I just definitely been a big fan. So welcome to the show, Doug. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you, John. I wish you wouldn't stop talking. That was all good.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like I'm a kiss ass, but just being honest, I really am
No,
am a big
thank
fan
you,
of your
man.
guitar playing and stuff.
I really appreciate it. That was very kind and probably too kind,
No,
I would say.
no, not at all. I think it's well deserved. I mean, I know you've been at this for a really long time, and for myself, I said I wasn't, you weren't on my radar until I seen you with Dio. I was in Post Gazette Pavilion in Pittsburgh with the Deep Purple and Scorpion show,
Yeah,
and I was just totally blown away because I've seen Dio before with different guitar players. I mean, I was fortunate enough to see him early on with Vivian Campbell as well, but
yeah,
basically the other times I've seen him, it's been great, and Dio's been amazing. But guitar wise, it was always a little bit to be desired. And no offense to those guys, they were all great on their original stuff. But when it came to playing some of the classics or some of the Rainbow stuff or some of the Sabbath stuff, it was a little bit to be desired. So means a lot to me.
it they were all different. Each guy that Ronnie had different strengths and whatever. And the only thing I can say is Ronnie definitely he brought out the best in me. He brought out the best in everybody. But he really wanted to. He was excited about that album, Killing the Dragon, and he wanted to go out and kick ass. And so we rehearsed probably like 6 weeks, and I had a couple conversations with him because people whenever you make a change, I think he was changing from Craig Goldie, and whenever you make a change, it's going to be some people some that are not sure, doubtful. So I said to him, what do you think about, like, I go, look, me and Vivian have a lot of similar influences. Like, for example, Gary Moore is, I just love Gary Moore's playing, and I know Vivian
Yeah.
has a lot of that. And so but I can't do exactly what Vivian does. And he goes, man, just be yourself, play the main melodies, do what you can, but you got to be yourself. And that's all. That's the best advice you can give a musician, is to just be yourself. So
Yeah.
Ronnie did that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could definitely tell because, watching the show, I felt, it didn't sound like people up there just copying those songs. It felt like the band was living those songs, and that's what's important. You want that fine line between, keeping it authentic to the original way, but also you want the show to be authentic too and be real to you. So I
Yeah,
applaud you on that aspect.
thank you, man. We had a blast. I mean, I learned so much from working with Ronnie and watching him on the stage. I can still see him, just doing his thing, across the stage right in front of me, and he's just, it was so inspiring. And the band got tighter and tighter as we went along that year. We did a lot of shows, and by the end of it, we were tighter than a gnat's ass, as they say.
Yeah. Well, it was, I mean, I do want to get into the Dead Daisy stuff, but just to get back to the Dio thing real quick, I mean, just continue talking about it. It just, yeah, it really was an amazing time, I think, to see Dio, and it must have been amazing for you. I mean, because you've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure you grew up being a fan of the early Dio stuff, and to work with really one of the best vocalists. And to be fair, I mean, what you're working with three of like some of the best vocalists in rock and metal, Dio,
Yeah.
David Coverdale, and Glenn Hughes. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah,
damn phenomenal.
I know.
Yeah,
If you,
I was gonna say.
I mean, that's
I was like, you're
pretty
working with
damn
like the
awesome.
best, man. I was gonna ask you, what is that like for you? I mean, you're kind of transitioning, throughout your career of working with all these different vocalists. I mean, sometimes, you probably listen again to David Coverdale and Whitesnake and that early stuff. And then like for you, I guess it must be kind of cool to be able to get out there and play some of that music
well,
that you listen to.
yeah, that's exactly right. Well, what happened is when I first heard about Rainbow, it was from the live album, the on stage album that Ronnie was on. And that album blew me away. And I used to, just the way Ronnie sang on that record
I
was
know, it's
insane.
amazing. Yeah.
And so, you know, down the road, it was around 1990, I met Ronnie. He was looking for a replacement for Craig, and we jammed together. And he said, I want you got the gig. And I was like, well, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to say that so fast. And I was like, Ronnie, I've got this band called, my first band that was signed called Lion. And we were having record company troubles, but we were living together, and I just wanted my band to make it. It
Yeah.
eventually, so I turned him down. Eventually the band broke up, and I started doing sessions and this and that, whatever. But 10 years later, when he asked me to join, I was like, yeah, I'm in. And it was because of Ronnie that I got put out there, that David saw me, David. And like you said, I was a fan of early Whitesnake because of the singer in Lion was a British guy, and he was like really influenced by David. And our songs even had some similar, we had a couple of songs that had the same title of those Whitesnake songs. And then he got me into the early Whitesnake. I was like, I see what's going on here. And I loved that early Whitesnake. And then we were working on our first album that was very similar, influenced by early Whitesnake and Thin Lizzy and whatnot. And then they came out with the '87 album, and we were all blown away. Everybody was, by Sykes, and then the touring lineup was great. So then I'm on tour with Ronnie in the 2002, and he said to me, the people are going to be coming after you, but I want to. And I said, Ronnie, I'm with you, man. I love it. I love this. And but when David said, hey, it's 2 months tour, and I knew that we were going to be home and off, I said, yeah, I'm in 2 months. Let's go. And 2 months just kind of snowballed, and Ronnie was in the middle of writing anyways. And I just kept going, and 2 months turned into a lot longer. And I'm really proud of what I did with Ronnie, but I was, like you said, to get a call from David and say, I want you to be one of the guitar players, it was insane.
Unreal.
Really cool.
It's almost like too many good opportunities at one time. Like, it's like,
well,
either way, it would have been pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think my background was definitely more. I loved Sabbath with Ronnie. I loved it. I loved Rainbow. I loved Dio, early Dio stuff, especially with Viv. And so working with Ronnie was killer. But I think stylistically, the best fit at that time was with Whitesnake. And David was like my big brother. I also learned a lot from him, and we spent hours and hours and hours writing and hanging out, and families hanging out. And so it felt really good. Eventually I needed to cut out and spend time with my child, with my boy. He was been missing me, and it just been full on with Whitesnake for like 10 years. So I took some time off, and I've been friends with Glenn. I've been friends with Glenn since Ronnie introduced us, I believe. And then we'd always kind of, a couple times we jammed. I jammed once with the Black Country guys without Joe. They were wanting to maybe look at trying to do some shows, and so I jammed with Glenn on that. And then we did some jams out of town together, and I loved him. He called me. I was off the road, and he called me and said, hey, I'm doing this tour. It's like 3 weeks in South America and 6 weeks or something in Europe. And what do you think? And I was like, I'm in. That sounds great. I was back ready to go on the road again. You know, I'd taken care of everything at home. And we had a blast. Me and Glenn, it was some of the best jams I've ever been a part of. You know, everybody knows Glenn is an amazing singer. He's the voice of rock. He's like the soul. He's the soul mover, you know?
Yeah.
But his bass playing is ferocious. It's like, it's, to coin one of the titles on the record, it's like no other. His bass playing is just, he plays what he feels. And when I would be soloing, he'd start to rail up, you know, get up on the neck, and I'd hear him doing that, and I'd kind of pull back a little bit, let him have some room, and then he'd kind of get back into the groove, and I'd take over. And so, cutting to 2019, where I got a call saying that they're talking to Glenn Hughes about Dead Daisies, and I said, that would be amazing, because it's a fresh start. It's like it's like a revolution. It's not trying to replicate anything with John Corabi or John Stevens. It's like, let's do something new, you know? And that was really exciting to get Glenn in.
Yeah. I mean, like you were writing, obviously, your original music, because you did stuff with Burning Rain beforehand, and then you eventually, you know, you worked on the Dead Daisies, and you've done other projects, but you know, you, like you just talked about, you had that kind of span where you worked with Dio, you worked with Whitesnake, you were kind of in other bands and playing other music. So was it kind of refreshing to come back and,
Sorry.
you know, no, you're fine. Was it kind of refreshing to come back and, you know, be able to focus on your own original music, you know, with the Dead Daisies, and write new songs and new albums and all that stuff?
Yeah. So it was like this. David Lowy and I started to do some writing, and we got together, just getting some riffs together and stuff. And how we had written together with John Corabi was, we'd all sit down with acoustic guitars and just, you know, I'd play a riff or John would play a riff, and then we'd go, oh, that's cool. And then we'd build on it. And then our producer, Marty Fredrickson, is really a great songwriter. And he would kind of start with melodies, and it would snowball into a song. And then we'd just kind of document these ideas on the phone. But we were going to do it a little differently this time. And once we got word that Glenn, and I called Glenn, I said, is this for real? And he goes, yeah, it's time you and I make some music for the Dead Daisies, and together. And so I immediately shifted gears with David and started thinking about songs that Glenn would like, you know, like things that we could present to Glenn, because you gotta, you know, when you're writing with these guys, you have to present them with things that they like, you know, like David or Ronnie, it's same thing. Me and Jimmy Bain were sitting in this room coming up with a couple songs for Killing the Dragon, and we gave him, I think, 6 things, and he picked 2. And always with David, I'd send him ideas, and he'd gravitate towards the ones that he wanted to, and the same with Glenn. So I said, David, this is what Glenn likes. He likes this heavy groove thing, but we got to maintain the integrity that you started with the Dead Daisies. So we got to find a balance there. But we presented Glenn with some songs, and Glenn brought some songs in. And the thing that was great was, I don't know if you guys know, but we went to the south of France to record the album. And and it was a killer studio, just beautiful, and very secluded. So there was no distractions, and we could really focus and kind of live as a band and gel and all that. And it really you can hear it in the songs on Holy Ground, that it's like there's a vibe going on.
Awesome.
I forgot. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did. Don't worry, you're all good.
Yeah, Glenn, my name's Alex. I'm a guitar player for a band called Immolation, and I'm a big fan.
Alex, what's up, man?
Yeah, nice to meet
Thanks,
you.
bro.
And yeah, I consider you, the last of some of the great guitar players. You know, and I was familiar with you in the '80s, but it wasn't until I think years later I started to kind of really get familiar with your playing. And I would agree with John, the same thing with the Dio stuff. You know, as far as I'm concerned, there was just 2 guitar players. It was Vivian and you. You know, some great
Well, I
players.
appreciate it. Those guys, they're all, I mean, hey man, Rowan Robertson is a great player. And Craig, I gotta
Oh yeah,
say,
yeah, absolutely.
Craig did a great job with him. I mean, I really appreciate what you're saying. I just,
Yeah.
You know, people would say, hey, my favorite was Rowan, or my favorite was Viv, or my favorite was whatever. And some people would name me as well. And you know,
Yeah. But
a lot of gratitude.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like John was saying though, it's just the way you executed those songs. Like, for instance, when you have players like an Iommi or a Gilmore or Randy or Eddie, when you hear these guys, you know it's them. You know, they have that identity instantly. And it's the same thing when I hear you're playing. I think that's the most important thing, is to have identity.
Well, I appreciate that, bro. You know, I'm sure you have the same, and that's the thing that's important to try and, for me, you know, younger guys playing is because we don't want to be me and you and we don't want to be the last. We want to be, you know, I want some kids to come kick my ass. Actually, there are some kids
inspire people.
Yeah, sure.
There are some kids out there that are kicking my ass, but and there's some, you know, there's some guys, especially in the blues world, that are like killing it, like Jared James Nichols and Tyler Bryant, and that guy Philip Sayce. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but and this guy Art Menendez. These guys are just so good, but they're young. You know, they gotta do it for a while and break out of get their sound, so they're all individually their own. Yeah. But I think the advice that Ronnie gave me is the best advice. Is just do what makes you feel good, to be yourself. And I say, you know, for the younger guys, like, have fun. It's about having fun. I mean, it's still, I'm mid-50s and I still feel like a kid. I come out in this studio and it's just like, you know, it's awesome.
Enthused now than ever, actually. You know, I think I enjoy it more now, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you. It's just like when you're younger, you're so competitive and all that kind of stuff. And I think as you grow older, you kind of you enjoy things a bit more and appreciate
what you have too.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But question I wanted to ask you is, you know, I've been playing guitar maybe 36, 37 years, something like that. Now, I know you've been playing a lot longer than me. And was there a point in your career that you kind of felt like, you know, because for me, it's only in the last couple of years where I just start feeling like, you know, I think I kind of got an idea what I'm doing, you know, or you know, kind of like, I feel like, you know, I kind of know what my thing is or whatever. Was there a point with you where you were just kind of like, yeah, I think I kind of have my own identity here. I kind of, you know, starting to finally able to kind of really express what I'm trying to get through. Because I mean, as a guitar player, you're always searching for that tone or whatever that doesn't exist. You know,
that's right.
But, you know, and then and I'm still searching for that same thing. But you know, like I was saying, it's only been in the last few years for me, at least, that I started to kind of like, yeah, I think I kind of got my own thing here, you know, going.
I go through phases, you know, usually I don't, if I get that feeling, it's not for long. I'll get, you know, I'll be humbled by somebody or whatever. I think I'm always I'm two things. One, trying to keep up with myself, with what I have been able to do in the past, and try to remember. Like sometimes I'll spend time and come up with things, maybe some kind of a lick or a chord progression or something, and then I'll forget. If I don't document it somehow, I'll forget about it, and then I'll be like, wow, there was something I was doing, but I don't remember. And then and then also trying to push myself to not be complacent or just like you know. So I think that naturally, whatever, you know, whatever style, or, you know, I feel like this is my thing, naturally it just comes out. I don't really think about it, but I do know this. I'm pretty much, like, people would go, you can play a lot of different styles, but pretty much I'm only really a one-trick pony. I do one thing. I want to do more. I want to learn how to do more but what I do, I just do it the best I can. You know, that's the thing to do, is to focus on, for me, just for me personally, it's best to focus on my strengths and keep trying to build on that than trying to bite off too much and do different, you know, like have jazz chops on this side and then metal chops on this side and this. I just got to do what I can do the best, which is just, you know, be me. You know, I guess it sounds silly. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get
Somebody
it.
else talk.
And you know, the Burning Rain stuff, to me, it feels like when I listen to that, especially the last record, it seems like that's where you can like completely be yourself, you know, at all times. Am I wrong by saying that? Or
no, it's definitely a freedom thing where I don't, you know, I can basically, me and Keith would put together something that and it's definitely a back burner project just because of, you know, schedules and stuff like that. The Daisies is my, you know, my day gig. That's my thing. But especially, you know, over the past few years, but we were able to squeeze a record in for a couple reasons. One, was trying to fulfill the contract and get it with the record company, and Keith and I had some free time, I believe in 18, and we just came up with some tunes and thought, hey, let's get on this, and we got a new rhythm section in, but yeah, I can pretty much do whatever we want to do, like whatever I want to do. I can say, you know, I want to try to accomplish this or that, but it comes down to finding songs that feel like, you know, and even with Keith, he's got to be inspired, you know. I mean, I can tell him like, here's the melody I'm hearing, or here's the phrasing I'm hearing, but if he's not feeling it, it doesn't come out to be a good song, you know. It's got to, singer has to feel it, you know.
Yeah.
But as far as guitar playing, yeah, I kind of, you know, I would love to. I really love working with a producer, because with Burning Rain, I'm maybe a little bit all over the place because I can do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. It's nice when you have a producer going, like with the Dead Daisies, Ben Gross would say, like, I'd play a solo and he'd go, I go, what do you think? And he'd be like, so the first part's pretty good. And I'd go, okay. I'd play again. I'd keep the first part. I'd do something else. And I'd be like, yeah, it's not, you know, it's good, but it's not really there yet. And I'd be like, okay, how about this? And I'd play something else and I'd be like, what about that? And he'd be like, I like the end. I'm like, I go, Ben, what the hell, man? You know, this is how I want the soul. I want it to start off with some fire, and I want it to have a nice melody, and then I want it to have a little, you know, a dive bomb at the end or whatever it is, you know. And he'd be like, he'd look at me and go, well, Doug, just quit screwing around. Just do it. And then I would play a solo and I'd be like, well, that was crap. And he's like, no, that was really good. You know, I'm like, yeah. It's nice to have somebody that's telling, you know, because otherwise you can go down a rabbit hole, like, sure, you know, or a wormhole, whatever. But you can be like, with some of that Whitesnake stuff, there were a lot of the stuff I would just kind of do 3 or 4 solos and I'd basically know which kind of direction I wanted to do, or maybe I'd get lucky and get it within a couple takes and I could put it together. But then there was other songs where it was definitely, I had a melody in my head and it was a matter of, how am I going to build this thing the right way? I mean, there's so many options, and I'd have that melody. I'd be laying in bed at night going, maybe it should go like that, and then build up like that using that note. And I would like kill myself for a week, you know, like redoing the solo, and then I'd be like, that's the right way, but it sounds pitchy to me, so I got to redo it again, you know. So it's constantly a different thing. It's sometimes, sorry about that, guys, my battery was, I got to plug in here really quick. Yeah, so
I hear what you're saying. It's like, you know, when you work with different people, you walk into a situation where it's an established band or whatever, it's like you're kind of, you know, I think it helps you grow as a player by playing with different people and stuff. And I could say the same for myself, all the different projects that I've done. But you know, it's funny when they sit there, you know, when you're like, you start doing your thing with somebody else and just like, yeah, that's not really, you know, and you're just like, you know, and, but that stuff is great. I think it pushes you, you know, in some directions that, you know, normally as a guitar player like myself, you wouldn't
Yeah.
you wouldn't normally think, oh, okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. A yes man in the studio is like the worst thing ever.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
need
yeah,
someone to, you
Yeah,
need someone to tell you you suck and work harder and do it the right way, you know?
yeah.
yeah.
I agree. Somebody that inspires you. You know who used to do that with me was Andy Johns. I did some sessions with him with House of Lords, and we got to be friends. And we just hit it off, man. He was so funny. God bless him. He's, you know, rest in peace.
Yeah.
But he helped me on a solo record, and he's coming to my house. We were working on ADATs. Remember the ADAT tapes?
Yeah.
And I had just put together, you know, I had a little budget for a solo record. So instead of going to the studio, we built a little studio at home, and he'd come over and he would just tell me stories, hours and hours. And I'd be like, Andy, come on, let's get going. I got to play. And he'd be like, well, but Doug, you know, you really have very little talent. So, you know, this is not a bad way to spend a day. And I'm like, fuck. But he would say, it would just be like, you know, I don't know why you play music, because it's obvious you really don't have much natural gift for it, you know. So I mean, this is a good way for us to spend the day. In fact, why don't we go to lunch? And I'd be like, fuck you, let's go, man. And then and he'd like get me fired up, you know. And he'd be like, Doug, the vibrato was nearly there. You almost had a little bit of an Eric Clapton thing going on there. And then he'd go on a story about Eric Clapton. I'm like, fuck it, man. And I'd start to, you know, I would try harder. He'd push me, you know,
Wow.
different ways. But I used to love that when he would say that. I'd be back at him like, why are you doing that? Why, you know, with the knobs on the thing, it doesn't sound good. It's like, Douglas, I've been doing this a lot longer than you. Let me show you. And I'm like, well, it's obvious you don't know what you're doing. You got two hands on two different knobs. How can you hear two different things at once? And I would just, you know, give it back to him. But we had a blast working together. Me and Andy, we would work together, and then also periodically he would call me up and be like, he would say, come on, you know, come over, bring some smokes, and let's listen to some Hendrix or whatever. And we'd just have a couple beers and listen to, you know, Hendrix or Zeppelin or whatever. And he, see, that's it, Doug. That's what is missing today, you know.
Yeah.
So it was good. But then and then he, you know, we lost him a few years back. So
Those experiences are great learning for any musician. It's
yeah.
especially back in those days when you didn't have, you know, the computer digital recordings and stuff, and you had to actually play stuff on tape. You know, you really couldn't make those. You had to have it in the performance, and it was just
Mhm.
great to have someone behind you pushing you, saying like, that sucks, you know, you want this to represent you on an album, you know. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
You
think,
got those guys that do that, but then you got other guys that would be like, Ronnie would never say he would never tell anybody that sucks. He would sometimes he would be really mad at Simon when Simon would, at the beginning of Last in Line, if Simon hit the snare too hard in the beginning, he would turn back around when the guitar gets heavy, and he'd cuss him out, you know, like turn back to the drums and cuss him out. You fucking play that snare drum. That's all. It's not. It's all about the snare drum. Should we just call it Dio the Snare Band? You know, and Simon would laugh. He'd laugh about it, but Ronnie would never tell you it sucked. He would always go like, I'd go like, Ronnie, what do you think about this? And generally he'd always be supportive, but if he wasn't happy with it, he would go, you know, I feel like you're onto it, but it needs to be like Richie would take these things and take them a step further. It would be a grand moment. You know, you got to make it a grand moment. Like, I forget what words he would use, but something like that. And there was a couple times where I played something and he felt like, man, that was great. That was really like, he really loved Blackmore. He really, I mean, of course he loved Tony Iommi, but I think Blackmore was like, he was, you know, that's who brought him in, was
Yeah.
Blackmore.
Yeah.
So he would always, like, if there was something that he liked, he would compare it to that. And so jumping to 2009, he wanted to do a tour, and Craig had been back in the band, but he wanted to do a tour to keep his band working, keep the band name out there, and also keep his voice in check, because he had dates with Heaven and Hell for 2010, and we, you know, of course we know the tour didn't go off because he got diagnosed, but
Yeah.
but we were in rehearsal, and and there was one other time he had asked me to do a tour with him, and I said, well, can we do a song that I want to do? And he goes, what? I go, Voodoo, on the Sign of the Southern Cross. I mean, Mob Rules, sorry,
Yeah.
Mob Rules. And he goes, okay, cool. And we played it, and it was great. And then I said, okay, so Ronnie, for this 2009 tour, the only way I'm going to agree to do it, which was, I wasn't threatening, I was joking, but I go, the only way is if we can do 16th century Greensleeves, like the version on stage. And he goes, all right, you got it. And I'm like, okay, good. I shook on it. Okay, I'll do the tour. And man, that song, he sang the hell, even though he was in pain and he was at rehearsal, really, you know, kind of buckled over sometimes, he would sing the hell out of that song, and it was like goosebumps, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you were jam with him, I guess maybe he didn't know about the cancer, or did he already know, or what was that
Yeah,
situation?
he did not. He just knew he was. So he said, we're doing a tour. I want to keep the band busy. I want to get my chops up, and we're going to re-release um
Last in line? Maybe?
Magica.
Oh,
No,
Magic.
no, it was Killing the Dragon. We're going to
Okay.
re-release Killing the Dragon and something else, and I'm gonna put out a new song, and I want to record this song as a bonus track, which was a song called Electra
Yeah, I
that
remember
we
about that.
recorded. So we got together, and he pretty much had the song written. Long story short, we recorded it, but during the recording, I noticed he was kind of like, he's like, oh man, it's not, you know, stomach's been bugging me, you know. And then I remembered he had said that at my house, I mean, at his house studio. And so I was just like, I hope it goes away, you know. But then a couple weeks later, we got in rehearsal, and he was always the first one to show up and the last one to leave at rehearsal, always. And he was just like, guys, I gotta tap out, man. It's just, I'm not talking like, he didn't use those words, tap out. He'd say like, I gotta knock it on the head or something. It's just, my stomach's just killing me. And even during that, he would still sing the set twice, but then he would just want to go home. And that was not like Ronnie. And it was getting down to the last couple of rehearsals, and they had already sent our gear to Europe. And I said, Ronnie, man, you better go to the doctor and get this checked out. You don't want to end up in a hospital somewhere in Europe and not know, you know, although a hospital in certain parts of Europe could be a great place to get fixed. But
Yeah, it's away from home though.
yeah, it's away from home. So he went to the doctor, and he said it was some antacid problem, and they gave him medicine, and then he was going to go back for some more testing, whatever. And we thought, okay, cool. But it still wasn't getting better. And then the last day, he didn't show up. And Simon said, Wendy wants us to go through the set. Ronnie can't make it today. He's got doctor's appointment, but she's going to come down and let us know what's going on and everything. But that was a really difficult day to try to play the set twice without Ronnie, I couldn't stop thinking like, what's going on? Like, and they were still talking about, you know, we got a flight day after tomorrow or whatever it was. And I'm like, this is just weird. I mean, is Ronnie going to like meet us over there? And then she came down, and she was obviously really upset and told us that he had been diagnosed, but everything was going to be okay. And we just, you know, but the tour was off. He needed to get right in treatment. And so the next day was the last day I saw him. I went, I've told this story before, so apologize if you guys have heard it, but Ronnie only liked Indian curry. He liked curry, and he liked spicy, and he liked meatballs. He liked meat. He wasn't a vegetable guy.
Right.
But I knew I was like really into, I was into vegetables, juicing and stuff. And I thought, I'm going to get him with this, because it doesn't taste like when you eat a carrot. It tastes really good when you drink it.
Yeah.
And so I got a juicer, and I got a big bag of vegetables, and I went over to his house. We all went over there, And I said, Ronnie, you got to start doing this. Look, and I showed him how to do it. It's really tastes good. And he's like, all right, I'm going to try. I'll do it. You know, I gotta make some changes. I got to quit smoking and all this. And he was, you know, he didn't smoke much, but a little bit. And got to quit drinking and probably just get healthy. And I said, well, do this. This is going to make you feel a lot better sooner. And that was the last meeting we had. And then he went away for treatment, and we just text after that. And a lot of times just text about sports or whatever. But the last text was really like, he goes, man, I feel like crap. This last treatment was just really hard on me. And I was like, I'm so sorry, man. You just hang in there, bro. And then I went to do this thing with Glenn in Italy, and it was just a one-off. Like Glenn was a headliner and Yngwie was a headliner, and then I was going to do a set, and George Lynch and some other guys, Derek Sherinian, went to play keyboards, and so we're all over there, and we do the show. And at the end, we all jammed together on "Long Live Rock and Roll," dedicated to Ronnie. And it was a beautiful night in Bologna, Italy, outside. And we went and had dinner after, and that's when I got a phone call that from Scott, the keyboard player, saying that you better call Wendy. Ronnie's not doing good. And she said, he's waiting for you. I said, I'll be home tomorrow, flying home. And she says, he'll wait. He wants to see you, and he wants to see some people, but they're just giving him meds now. They're just giving him pain meds. They're got him off the other stuff because it's just too late. And I couldn't believe it, because I thought, I don't know, they had Heaven and Hell dates on sale, you know, so I thought surely he's getting better. But when I landed, me and Derek were sitting there on the plane, and when we landed, the phone just, it was just like text messages from Ronnie was gone. And you know, it hit Glenn hard. We were both pallbearers at Ronnie's wedding with Tony and Geezer, and I forget who else, but it was, you know, it sucked basically.
Yeah. I mean, well, it was a terrible loss for all of us. I mean, it had to have been 10 times worse for you being close with them. I mean, but I mean, for the whole heavy metal world and almost any style of metal, it touched, it was kind of like, I don't know, it was like our father passing away or something, like the father of what everybody that does almost any style of metal, you know, was into, either Rainbow, Sabbath, or Dio. I mean, those are the three like fundamental bands of almost everything hard rock and heavy metal. So it was definitely, I know for myself, it was just a shock, because you know, Dio represented my teenage years, you know, going to see him play live in the stadiums for those, you know, first few albums and stuff like that. And it was just, yes, a sad thing.
He's my favorite heavy metal singer. There's no question. And he a great guy, stand-up guy. It was like he was probably the most beloved. There was only a couple people that probably had beefs with him. Maybe Vivian had a beef with him still. I'm not sure, but Vivian's a great guy and Ronnie's a great guy. They made disagreement, but otherwise the guy was loved by all. I mean, everybody respected Ronnie, especially the stuff he was doing with Heaven and Hell.
Yeah,
and I remember like that tour where I told you, I said, I want to do Voodoo. And he goes, okay. And he's like, damn it, man, we're going to Birmingham, England. And he goes, I got to meet up with Tony. I'm like, they're doing a Dio Years package thing, and they want me to do a track or something. I'm like, that's great, Ronnie. That's freaking awesome. And he goes, nah, man, I just want to do my band. I go, yeah, but that could be great for your band. He goes, well, Wendy's forcing me to do it, so I gotta go, you know. And he's like, like that. And I remember seeing him during the day. We got in, everyone would go to sleep whenever we could get in the hotel, and we'd go back to bed. And I woke up around 4 and went and get a bowl of soup. And I saw Ronnie come out of the elevator, and he was all dressed up, and he's, you know, walking. And I was like, oh, you're gonna go see Tony, right? He goes, yeah, I'm gonna, I gotta do it, you know. He goes, when I came back, I was down at the bar with the guys. We were getting ready to go to the gig, and he came back, and he had a pep in his step. He was really happy, and he's like, "Man, it went great. It was really great to catch up with Tone. You know, he's instead of calling him Tony, he called him Tone, and yeah, it was great. You know, and that first song that he did, "The Devil Cried," that was just badass. I think that's what it's called. It was badass.
Devil Cried. I think.
And then they went on from there and kept going, and you know, it was awesome because I mean, of course Sabbath with Ozzy's great, but man, I played more of Heaven and Hell album than any of those other Sabbath albums, probably. Yeah, so he, you know, he was like not into it, and then he came back all happy, and then Tony came to the gig, and we played Voodoo, and I was just like, it was, and I met Tony, and he said, yeah, you sounded really good. He's like a proper English gentleman, Tony, you know, and so then they started writing, and they came up with those tunes. It was awesome.
That's amazing. I do have a story of meeting Ronnie. It was actually on a Killing the Dragon tour. I guess it was your merch guy was my friend Bo, who he actually tour managed a tour I was on. I'm in a death metal band, Incantation, and we played with Grave, and he was like tour manager. This was back in the 90s, early 90s. And I was just
I heard of that band.
Yeah, I was having a blast, like just revisiting my youth during that show, and I was headbanging. I had like 11th row, so I was just headbanging, just enjoying the trip down memory lane. And then I see Bo comes to the stage and hands me some backstage passes, and I thought he was just gonna shake my hand or something, you know. So I was just like, "Holy fuck!"
That's
and then I we went backstage, and I was sitting down at like a little waiting table on side, and I mean Ronnie just walked right up to me and just shook my hand and said, "Hello, I'm Ronnie," and I was just like, like I couldn't even talk, This is like my my childhood dream come true, and I was trying not to be a total fanboy, but I was a total fanboy, and he was totally understanding of the situation, but it just blew my mind. And I have to say that it was one of the best experiences in my life to meet him, because it just, the humbleness that he showed me really put things in my life in perspective, because somebody that I really idolized, this work that he's been a part of, and has been part of my DNA as a musician. Even though I play in a more extreme style, it's still part of my DNA. And for him to be so nice. And then after that, the rest of you guys came in, and I actually met you at that show, and Jimmy and the other guys, Simon, and everybody was really in a good mood and nice, and just seemed like a really positive vibe. And it just a really nice experience doing that. But it was just, he just really made everybody feel very like he really cared about his fans. You could just really, and I experienced that firsthand, and it's just a wonderful thing. And I just wish everyone got that opportunity to see him just as a musician that just he's proud of his work, but he's very appreciative of his fans, it seemed like to me.
Well, imagine how surreal it would be because you could have, if you were in LA, you could have easily gotten involved and been part of the family too. You could have, who knows, you might have played for him, you might have just been a friend. But imagine, Ronnie's having a party, and he invites you over, and it's like everybody's there, and it's like the greatest, it's like the greatest party ever. Or even more surreal was like, you'd go over there in the morning, and Ronnie would just be dressed like a regular guy. He wouldn't just, it would look, he'd look like Ronnie, but he'd just be dressed in regular clothes, nothing fancy. And he'd be listening to sports radio on a little transistor radio, like a little mono one. He'd be getting the antenna right to
Old
get
school.
And he's in there, and he just looking at this guy going, and in this like amazing house, and you're like, he's just like, he's such a normal guy, but he's like Dio. It was like, it was just weird.
I have a really quick kind of story that I think you might find touching, that I told Vinny Appice this. I recently had him on my own podcast. I was actually back in 2019. I went to a festival that was in Ohio, one of those kind of big Danny Wimmer festivals. It was like Sonic Temple, and you know, it's like a 3-day festival, right? So Killswitch Engage was playing, and they do the cover of Holy Diver. They did it on one of their records. So they do the cover of Holy Diver, and you know, I was standing in the audience, and again, it's a festival atmosphere. There's tons of people. But the interesting thing about this is that it was the sunniest day that you could possibly imagine. It was beautiful weather for all 3 days of this festival. And it was as sunny as you could just possibly imagine. And we're watching Killswitch Engage, and I feel a bunch of like droplets on me. And I thought, you know, people are crowd surfing, people are moshing, people are throwing their beers or whatever. And so I figured that it was just somebody throwing their beer and it just hit me on the shoulder, right? You know, shit happens. And that it was just a couple droplets, nothing else. And I look to the sky, and there's a giant rainbow, huge. And
Wow.
they break into it was the end of their set, and they were about to go into Holy Diver, and they pointed out that there was a huge rainbow. When I tell you it didn't rain, it didn't rain. Like it was like 3 droplets, and they only hit me, and then it was like a huge rainbow. And I mean,
That's amazing.
I was blown away, and I was and other people in the audience were all looking up at the rainbow like, holy shit. And even Killswitch Engage couldn't believe it. They were like, do you see that? Like, that's insane. And it was just, it was such a touching moment. Cause I mean, I don't know how much, you know, you personally believe in a lot of that stuff. I'm a big, you know,
I do.
Yeah, it was an incredible moment. And I mean, I thought it might be touching for you, you know, you knew him, and you know, having
that's an amazing story. It's beautiful. And it's funny, it's a coincidence because a few days ago, I want to say it was, what are we today? Tuesday or Wednesday? It was, yeah. I think it was Friday. I went to the store, grocery shopping, and I come out, I loaded the car, and this guy pulls up in a really nice BMW, and he's like, you could see him, he's air drumming, and I heard the song, and it was like a really aggressive song, and he had his puppy. His puppy is sitting there, and he's air drumming his puppy, and he opens the door, he opens the door, and he goes, he's a really good drummer. Because I was kind of looking at him like, what's this guy doing? What's he on? And then I realized it was that song. It was, I was like, so he gets out of the car, he goes, yeah, man. I go, hey, dude, because I actually didn't know that, I'd never heard that, actually. Yeah. Maybe I did, but I just forgot about it, maybe. I said, who is that? He goes, Killswitch Engage. And I go, man, that sounded awesome. He goes, dude, they're the best, man. That's a song. That's not their song, though. That's like a cover song they did. And I go, I used to work with the guy that was that song. He goes, Dio, they even put Dio in their video, man. I go, yeah, he was a friend of mine. And he goes, no way. And I told him my name, and he didn't know me or whatever. He was a young guy, but he goes in the store, and then he comes running back out. He goes, hey, dude, here's my card. Text me your name again. So I didn't do it, but it was just funny how, you know, thankfully that Ronnie's songs are moving down to younger bands. You know, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And this guy didn't know Ronnie, his music or his band or whatever. He didn't care. He just knew Dio was, because Dio is like famous like Ozzy or whatever.
Right,
like
right.
my son knows who Ozzy is, but he doesn't know Ozzy's music as much as others, you know, maybe Whitesnake, or I think his favorite band was Motley Crue. He loved Motley Crue. But speaking of him, the last day of Ronnie's life, or the last evening, so I was in Italy, and I told my ex-wife I said, listen, he's not doing good. You should go down and say goodbye. And she goes, what about Ryder? And I named, you know, Ryder. I like that name. And then my dad's first name is James, so Ryder James Aldrich is who I named him, like similar to the ring of Ronnie, or Stevie Ray Vaughan, Ronnie James Dio. I always liked that ring of those 3 names. And I said, you better and Ronnie had held Ryder once. He was just a baby. He was like a year old. But I said, you better go down there. And then Wendy said, when I talked to Wendy, she goes, no, he'll wait for you. Don't worry. And I called her back. I go, listen, it's bedtime. you should probably get him in bed. She says Ronnie's okay. He's waiting for some people. Jeff Pilson and some other people are coming in. And but she said, no, I'm just gonna go. And I'm super happy she did, because she did get to say goodbye. And my boy was in the room with them one last time. And you know, she said that she loved him, and he blinked, or but he was too weak to really sit up. So, but yeah, so I forgot why I was telling you that, but it was just because my son with the music. But yeah, everybody, I mean, when you hear those Dio songs, especially Last in Line, it's like, it just gives you strength. You know, that's the thing. But this whole COVID thing that sucks about not having live music is that music is totally essential. It gives you an escape. It gives you strength. It plays, you know, any emotion you have, there's music to back it up and make it feel like it's there for a reason. And your story was really cool, because those are the types of moments that we're missing right now. We need that, you know?
Yeah. It was one of the most special moments, because I mean, I never had the opportunity. I'm only 21, so I never had the opportunity to see Ronnie. Unfortunately, my dad is a big Dio fan, like Dio's his favorite. So I grew up knowing everything about Dio, but unfortunately it just didn't match up with, you know, me going to shows and everything to see him. So, you know, when that happened, it was almost like, you know, in a weird way, it was almost like, you know, that was the time that I got to, you know, meet Ronnie or see Ronnie, or that's just kind of how it felt like for me. So it was a really special moment to be there. And I completely
think
agree.
it's true.
Yeah.
I think it's true. I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Doug.
No, go ahead.
John was talking about meeting Dio and what, you know, the impression it made on him. And it reminded me of a story of the interview actually I saw with you, where you were talking about you met Randy Rhoads when you first moved to LA, and you know just how humble and cool he was, and you're just like, oh shit, that's a guy who plays with Ozzy, you know, like I don't know if you could share a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I was just you know, when I moved out, I'd seen Randy. Ozzy had the song "I Don't Know" on the radio, and my friend and I we had got tickets. I think it was really cheap. It was like $10 or $8 or something. Or no, I take that back. We didn't have tickets. We said I was at his house and he was driving, and he goes, we're gonna go see Ozzy Osbourne. And I remember the guy's dad said, Ozzy Osbourne, who names their kid that? That's not a good name. And it's like, well, it's cool, you know, it's a cool name though for musician. So we go down to the gig, and right before the show, probably at like 7 o'clock, we get there and got tickets at the box office. And it was like literally, I don't know how it happened. I still don't know how it happened, but it was maybe meant to be. But we got tickets right in front of where Randy was going to end up being, like 4 rows back or something, 6 rows, I don't know, super close, because it was a seated place in Philly called the Tower Theater. Otherwise, we would have been.
I grew up there.
I live in Philly, so I've worked at the Tower. Yeah, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah. So
legendary place.
Legendary. And so we were sitting there, and Motorhead came out, and I was right in front of Lemmy Stax, and it was nailing me in the head. And I was just like, hey, I wasn't mature. I didn't have a mature enough palette of music to get into Motorhead yet. It was a little too punk for me at that time. Now I get it. I love Motorhead, but you know, it's a whole attitude. But at the time, it was like they were supporting Ozzy, and I just wasn't feeling it. And I said, hey, if Ozzy's going to sound like this, let's go get some beers. We had a place where we could, on the main line, that they used to it was like an old rundown bar. We'd go in there and buy beer, and they'd sell it to us for whatever reason, I don't know. But then Ozzy came out, and there's Tommy Aldridge, and Randy Rhoads is there in front of me, and he's playing I Don't Know. The first song on the set list was the song from the radio. And Rudy's over there all badass, and Ozzy, and it was just like, it was like the most, it sounded like Frampton Comes Alive. It was like so crystal clear. The mix was great. And Randy blew me away. And that night I said to my buddy, I go, maybe he might be as good as Eddie. I don't know, man. It's like, that just smoked my ass. And then the next year, or later that year, I think it was when I moved to California, and I ended up getting a little apartment that my parents were sponsoring me as long as I went to college. But I didn't go to college, so I had to get a job, and I got on my own. And so before my phone got cut off, I had met this kid called Eddie, and Eddie called me one night. He goes, "Hey, do you want to go see Randy? He's playing with DeBro at the Whiskey." And I was, at that time, you could get in those clubs if you were 18 or 19, but you just couldn't drink. And I was like, "Randy, who?" And he goes, "Randy Rhoads." I said, "The guy from Ozzy's band?" And he goes, the English guy from Ozzy's band. He goes, "No, he's not English. He grew up in Burbank." I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I just take lessons from him." I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "All right, let's go." And I didn't really believe it, but we walked in there and we went backstage, and there was a bouncer. And at the Whiskey, you guys probably all know, there's stairs to go up to the backstage, upstairs, and then you got to go up some other stairs to go to the backstage.
Yeah.
And we got to that door, and we knocked on the door, and the guy opened it up, and this guy, I remember him saying, like, "What are you kids doing here?" And then Randy at the top of the stairs goes, "Hey, that's my friend Eddie, let him up." And Eddie's, "Hey, Randy, this is my friend Doug." He's like, "Hey, Doug, how you doing, man?" I was like, just like you were saying, John. And I said all the typical stuff, "I saw you in Philly, blah, blah, blah." And then he played that night, and he just played one song. And I remember I just didn't want it to end, because he's just so badass. And in the following week, and shortly after this, my phone did get cut off, so I would have missed it. But Eddie called me back and goes, "Hey, Randy's playing again. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Hell yeah." And we walk into the Whiskey, and there was Randy right at the front door. And he goes, "Hey, Doug, what's up, man?" I was like,
What?
"How can you?" Yeah. I was 18 or 17, 18, I think I was. And man, it blew me away that how could this guy remember my name? That's like crazy. I can't do that. Even at that time, I couldn't, it was just, but he was just super normal guy, he was just like a rock star, but he didn't know it. He just was, like that.
Yeah, he's definitely one
That's
of the
awesome.
best ever. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just such a shame.
Imagine him and Ronnie together. That would have been,
Oh,
Yeah. Wow.
That would have been
that would
really interesting.
That
Wow.
would have been
well,
actually a
maybe,
perfect match, I think.
Yeah, with his classical
how about
influence playing would be amazing.
the band Up in Heaven, Gary Moore and Randy together with Phil Lynott and John Bonham, sorry, and
Wow.
John Lord on keys.
hell of a lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, and then Jimi Hendrix playing third guitar, so it's like a guitar army, like Leonard Skinner, and singing. So Hendrix singing, like they're jamming. Oh, sorry, Ronnie's the singer.
Yeah.
Sorry, what am I thinking? So that's the band right there. Ronnie singing, and with Randy, they might be up
It
there
would have
doing
been
it.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
to hear that. Oh.
Or Eddie and Randy on
Yeah.
stage together.
Yeah.
There's too many people. We've lost too many greats. I mean, that's like Eddie going that was brutal. I was not ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a strange situation because it kind of knew something was going on with that Van Halen camp for a while. Just didn't know quite what. And definitely, I mean, it's a huge loss to everybody in music, but especially to like guitar players of that era. There was just no denying his
I mean, you
influence and
guys,
innovation.
He
the
changed the game,
innovation,
really.
Yeah.
he did totally. I mean,
Yeah.
his innovation, it was just like incredible. He made stuff to work how he wanted it to work,
Yeah.
and it was like the only way that it could be done is if he made it up himself, because it didn't exist before.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just, and they had it. It was just, he had it so dialed in every aspect. I mean,
Yeah.
when I saw them in 1979 at the Spectrum. They were, and it was another kind of like catch me by surprise moments where I was like going, "Who are we seeing tonight?" And it was like Van Halen. I was like, "Van who?" And Eddie came out and just fucking lit us up, man. And it just in the same way, like a guy like Eddie reminds me the same way like a guy like like Kobe Bryant. Kobe would just, even if he was having an off day, he had the ability to flip a switch and just turn it on and just go, you know? So that's what I aspire to have is the ability to do that, is to be able to, like, because, you know, we all have times when we're performing or whatever, and you're just not there. You're not in the moment enough. And I just would sit there and go, like, what would Kobe do right now? Like, what would he do to, it's the fourth quarter. He can either keep the game going as is, which he's sucking, or he can flip the switch and be the great Kobe. And he would always do it. So that's an aspiration that I sometimes have on stage when I know I'm not there. I'm not in the moment playing it, whether it's Dead Daisies or anybody.
Yeah, I think everybody has got to smack yourself around a little bit and be like, you know, you got to bring this. You can't just be dialing it in, you know, or
No, you got to, man.
You know,
And
no matter
audience will see that sometimes.
Yeah, no matter what, you always have, because people are paying to come see you play, and just for your own integrity too. You want to know that, okay, even if it wasn't the best, you want to know you tried the best you could at that moment to give them every ounce of, you know, your soul in your music. I think it's really important. And that's the vibe I get from your playing too, is it's very, you know, you're just giving people all you got. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
One, I mean, I don't want to keep you on forever, but we did say a lot of sad stories about Ronnie, but is there any like fun stories or positive stories you have from maybe your time working with him? It's like to hear something. I'm sure he would want us to be talking about something more positive than some of the unfortunate.
Well, he was he would just do these things. We'd have these parties on the bus where we'd drink red wine, and Scott Warren would always get some nice cheddar cheese. And we spent a lot of time in Europe on that summer. And then the two other tours that I did with him were, there was a leg in Scandinavia and a leg in the UK where they did the Holy Diver Live. But Ronnie would, he was just hilarious when he'd smoke a little hash and have a glass of wine. And he was just, you know, he'd be farting on the bus and just like, you know, he'd just put his leg over and we'd all just start cracking up. And there was one time that he used to put, at that time, you know, he was kind of building back up the band in 2002. Yeah. And he would leave his stage clothes on the bus to dry at night. And one night we were on there and I was just like, I can fit in those clothes. And I came out, you know, with this, I couldn't really, because he was definitely smaller, but I tried. But he was just, he really, it was just a lot of fun, but he was also very serious. Like he wanted to, he was like happy that, seemed like, you know, hard rock and metal were making a big comeback that year. And that tour was great to be on. It was Ronnie's, I want to say it was his 65th birthday in that summer. I'm not sure exactly how old he was, but it was a big birthday and it was in the summer. And we used to have, on that tour, we'd have like parties, like the Scorpions would have like, they would do some kind of theme party, or Deep Purple had the Mexican party where everyone, you know, and now it's probably, you know, cancel culture stuff, but we would drink margaritas and everyone would, you know, have a bolero hat. And I forget what we did, what Ronnie did, but on his birthday, all three bands, Deep Purple and Scorpions, everybody got together in, it was in Chicago. And we did a surprise party for Ronnie, all three bands. And Wendy gave him a Mercedes truck. You know, those really square ones like the Kardashians drive, those Mercedes. I don't know what they're called, G series maybe. It's like a square Mercedes truck, like really square.
I'm not sure.
He was one of the first ones to get that. And she gave it to him. She showed him the picture, and he's just like, "Whoa, that'll be nice," you know, and drive around. And he just had a blast, you know. He was grateful to be on the road with his friends. He was really tight with all those guys, Deep Purple guys, with they were all like Ian Gillan. was a quiet guy. You know, didn't really talk too much. Maybe if you buy him a drink or something, he would hang for a minute, but he was always moving and just give a wave or whatever. But with Ronnie, he was like, I think he really respected Ronnie a lot, you know, and then of course Klaus and Ronnie were super tight. They had a lot of laughs. They couldn't really communicate great together, but you know, because Klaus, his English is really good, but you know, he's got a heavy accent, and I remember Ronnie saying, I don't know what he was saying, but I love him, you know. But they actually, you know, they seem like kind of like brothers almost, those guys. So yeah, there's I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of goofy stuff that I look back now and it's funny, but it was, you know, Ronnie would be pissed off at somebody and he'd be yelling at, you know, we'd be in some club in Europe and I'd be doing a guitar solo and I'd go in Ronnie would always say, go to the center of the stage. I want you to go. And there would be just one spotlight at this particular gig. And the spotlight would go on me for the minute doing the guitar solo. And then I'd go back to my spot and the spotlight would stay on me. And Ronnie'd be kind of in the dark a little bit. And he would start to like, you know, fit the lyrics of, "Oi, you up there." You know, he'd find a way to make the lyrics work to where he's cussing the guy out and the guy's telling the guy, the spotlight's supposed to come back here. Or if the red light, you know, during Heaven and Hell, you know, the red light, he would always do. Couple times, maybe only once I can remember for sure, but that malfunctioning, man, he would go mental. It was just like, and because he cared, you know, he cared about the show, just like you said. He wanted it to be perfect for people. He didn't want to sell them short. He didn't want him to, you know, he had built this legacy and he wanted it to be better and better all the time. And you know, it's funny about the story about the rain, because every time when some of my memories of touring with him in the summertime was the best shows were the rainy ones, you know, the dark ones. Like we would be driving to the gig and it'd be like, oh yeah, it's going to come down tonight, you know. And I just remember playing Holy Diver or some of that stuff with a really cloudy night with kind of drizzly rain, and in Europe, it was just awesome.
Yeah, had to have been just amazing memories, and just it's out of control. It's really,
he didn't like we did a couple shows in the daytime where he'd be like, it's very difficult he'd tell the audience, like, no chance of us being evil today with all this damn sunshine out here, you know. And he was, but
that's awesome. I know we didn't even really get to too much other stuff, talking so much about Dio, which is amazing too. But I would like to. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, let us talk about a little bit about the new Dead Daisies stuff, because
yeah,
I'm really because Glenn brings it, and he did a great job, and the whole band. You know, I'm really proud of the record. We had a blast making it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, as far as like, how does the songwriting go for that? I mean, are you kind of the main songwriter at this point in the band, or is everyone actually get together?
No, this is what I was. Glenn is probably the primary songwriter, because he's not only writing music, but he's writing lyrics and melodies, and definitely not probably. He is the main songwriter. He's got the most experience. Music just flows out of this guy, man. He's like dialed in, so that if I'm stuck, he always has an option. Like he doesn't need to write with anybody. He's a complete songwriter. But part of the coolness of this record is melding the sound that we'd started with David Lowy started with Glenn and Glenn's sound. And so Glenn when I called Glenn that time I was telling you, and he says, yeah, it's time. He goes, I got a couple of songs already. I want to present to the band. I go, I got a couple of things now that I want to present to you, but I'm now inspired to write for you. He goes, I know you will be. I know you are. So he brought in some stuff, and it was kind that he was open to help him arrange it, and then put our stamp on it individually, which was important because we had when we first got together, we got together in Sunset Sound in Los Angeles, and it felt good, but it was a little distracting being at home working, and we weren't really gelling together yet. So that's when management said, actually, I think David Lowy was his family was gonna be in Europe, and he wanted to be over there for the summer, and then he'd take off after that, and we'd go in the studio. And they found a studio in south of France that was basically, you'd live there, and they had a couple of chefs, and it turned out it was cheaper than the whole band staying in LA with hotels and everything and the studio costs, and it was a beautiful place, man. It was just like this giant chateau, and we'd sleep there and wake up in the morning, go down and have breakfast together, and then we'd go straight into the studio. So no cars, no going outside. It was like really dialed in and focused on the music. And that's when we started to really, work each other's ideas out and start to own them, and Ben Gross, the producer, did a great job. He just made the environment really just chill. We'd work hard and intensely, but then we'd knock it on the head, maybe 7 or 8, and have a kick-ass dinner with these guys cooking, man. It was like every day. And I think it was the studio's called La Fabrique Studio, and it was an old fabric mill, but they had these guys cooking up a storm, and there was some French wine, and then we'd start telling jokes or talking politics or whatever, and then just go get a good night's sleep. It was great, really conducive to work.
Is there any just like interesting or funny stories about just working with Glenn Hughes in general? I mean, he's a legend. I would love to hear, something about maybe his personality or something like that.
He's super. Glenn's he's one of the sweetest people you probably would meet. He's a very kind, gentle soul. He's very intelligent, well-read. He reads a lot. His lyrics on this album are, I think, some of my favorite. I've always loved his work, but I mean, he definitely, like the title track, you could make that, the way he dials out the lyrics, you could make that about anything. It could be about, planet Earth is holy ground, or you could be that holy ground is, some personal thing in your life, or your child, or, he basically leaves room for the listener to interpret however you want to, which is really cool. And the whole album is like that. And but it ties together. It's all about, he would say to you, if you were talking to him, he'd say, I write songs about the human condition and about healing and spirituality and stuff like that. But you can make the songs about what you want, which is cool. So personality wise, he'd be in the studio. He was really like, he wanted to be there when I was doing guitars and stuff, because he just wanted to be involved. Sometimes people don't really care. They're like, just let me know when it's my turn, and I'll come in and do my bits, just whatever. We would track together, and then basically going for the drums. And every time we'd play through it, we'd all kind of get our parts sorted out a little better and closer. And he would sing, what he could, what was written, he would sing it and play bass. And then once we got the drums for sure, then we'd start looking at doing guitars or bass or whatever needed to be fixed. And when I was doing guitars, he wanted to be there, and I'd be playing, and I'm trying to work. I'm playing this part, and he's going, yes, yes, yes. Oh, that's good. I like that. Yes, yes. And I'm like, I loved it. He was so positive, but it was distracting me. I was trying to be focused in the thing, and he's going, yes, yes. And I'm like, huh? And when he'd say something, I'd be like, what? And I go, Glenn, hang on, tell me everything that you want to tell me. But when I'm playing it, every time when you say something, I want to hear what you're saying, so I kind of lose my focus. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. So then I'd play something, and he'd be like, yes. And I'm like, Glenn, come on. But and then yeah, he's also a very proper gentleman. You know, he's American and English. He's got dual citizenship, I believe, but he's at heart, you know, a British gentleman, and he's definitely one of the things a lot of people know. He's very stylish. You know, he's a well-dressed, good-looking dude. You know, he always has been. Like he's always been a great-looking guy, and he's really into fashion and stuff. And you wonder, like, I even wonder, and I know how he does it. I saw him yesterday, and I was like, man, you look amazing. Look at those shoes. And what it is Glenn, his hobby is shopping. He loves to spend money and go shopping. He'll do it every day if he could. Like, we'd be on the road which made this thing of him coming to Dead Daisies made it really comfortable for him, because he already knew me. We've been on the road together. We know, you know, all the details of each other, you know, so he was comfortable. And when we were on the road, we'd pull up to the gig, and a lot of times we wouldn't even take a hotel room, because the venue would have a shower, and it'd be like, why even bother going to a hotel? Let's just take a shower. Let's wake up, go in the venue, take a shower and then do sound check, and then we'll go to have some dinner, and then come back and play the gig. And that was cool. If we had a day off, we'd get a room, usually, always. But we'd wake up in the morning and get a coffee. And at that time, he was drinking a lot of espresso. He'd get like 2 espressos, and he's like, okay, let's go. And we'd go into town, and we'd go shopping every time. And there was a couple times Glenn would be like, Doug, those would look really good on you, those shoes or that pants. And I'd be like, oh man, I don't know if I could pull that off. That'd take a lot of balls to pull that look off. You know, I think you could. He's like, trust me. I'm like, I tried on, it'd be something, and I'd be like, I can't do it, man. I can't do it. Give me time. You gotta break me in slowly, you know. There were some boots I found that were like $400, and he goes, that's the style right there. That's it. And I bought them, and I wore them a couple times, and I just never felt like, you know, it didn't sink in. And then the other day he brought some boots. Now I'm starting to open up a little bit. Like I'm open to you know, trying some different styles a little bit. But he gave me these shoes, and he goes, they're too small for me. And I said, well, let me try them, and they did fit. But they're like a suede shoe with a blue sole. The bottom part's blue. And I've worn them once, and I kept thinking, like, I'm not sure yet if I can pull these off, you know. But he's always like, I got a great jacket for you. And I'm like, I don't know, I'll have to see it first before you break it out. So there's a few things
that you did from as far as guitar wise in your approach to the writing or recording for the new Dead Daisies, compared to, because of the switch, you know, from Karabi to Glenn. You know, obviously there's 2 different types of singers, and
yeah,
you know, so you know, was there anything different that, you know, you're like, I have to approach this, you know, my thought process as far as, you know, tracking the guitars or serving the song differently?
Yeah, well, I definitely wanted to, you know, the songs were different, and I thought maybe less would be more on this album. Like, less, I get opportunities to play in different sessions, or like you said with Burning Rain or whatever. I thought for this, I want to really go for a vibe, you know, whatever the vibe is, go for it. We're all influenced by the 70s so much, and Glenn lived the 70s, you know, he was playing already, and we wanted it to be that. And I wanted a little bit more of attention, not to a solo section, but to like a melodic section. Like, you know, there's a bit of fire here and there, but it's not probably, you know, it's not people who are into, you know, the shred factor are going to have to get off on the song more than the shred. There's a little bit here and there, but I think it was something I wanted to try, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some stuff I was really happy with like that, and other things I had to work a little bit harder to get something that I mean, there was a couple times when Ben said to me, um, no, it was not Ben. It was Jimmy, Glenn's manager, Jimmy was there. We were all in the room together recording, and then when we were doing guitars, everybody, even management, was in there. And so I was doing solos, and there was a song called "Come Alive," and I had this melody in my head, and it was sorry, I keep getting texts. I had this melody in mind for "Come Alive" solo. I wasn't sure if it was going to work until I heard how Glenn would wrap up the transition, and then I'd figure out if it could still work. And fortunately it did. So I did this melody. It's a very simple kind of, I want to say I was influenced by Gary Moore on that a little bit, or maybe Neil Sean or something. But I did the first part, but I couldn't get the second part. I was like, I didn't know what to do. Shredding didn't feel right, and then Jimmy goes, well, he's from Birmingham, England. He's got a heavy Birmingham accent. He's like, Doug, maybe just, it's a good melody, why don't you play it twice? I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, that's a great idea. Play it twice and then just put a little rap on the end, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it worked good. So it was just because talking about melody, those things that Gary Moore would do, like, that were so awesome, and they'd stick in your head, or like you mentioned,
Yeah.
David Gilmour, or Dwayne Allman, and Neil Sean is the king of it. Some of his solos, what's that song, Who's Crying Now? That solo at the end,
Mm-hmm.
where he's it's just, that's one of those, why couldn't I think of that, So I wanted to see if I could get a couple of moments like that.
Yeah, sometimes you overthink it
Awesome.
almost,
That's true.
Yeah.
There's times when if you don't think, it's the best thing, and sometimes you can't help yourself. Sometimes you gotta take a break and clear your head. That's when I used to be a heavy smoker for a long time, and I quit about, it was 2008, so 12 years ago or something, whatever, 13. So, but one of the greatest things for me about smoking was that I'd stay super focused, and then if I got stuck, if I was not sure what to do or whatever, I'd just go have a smoke. And when I was having a smoke, I'd think about it, I'd come back in, and I'd have it, And so sometimes you got to step away, if you're struggling to get something, you got to get some advice from somebody that can give you ideas, melodic ideas. It's always good when somebody will go like, what about they give you 3 notes, whatever. It's like, okay, let me try that, then see where that leads.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely wanted to get a little more melody on stuff, and just have it fit the songs.
Yeah, it seems that way. It seems like a little bit more thematic kind of solos and stuff like that, or little accents and things like that I hear on the new record, And like you said, it's a little, like you said, less is more,
Yeah, it's I just think it's too, like we were talking, when we get older, you start to think like, I don't really want to feel like I've got to prove something. If I feel like doing it, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
But for right now, that felt like the right way to go. And the band agreed. They were like, that sounds good. Like, I'd play something and they'd go, yeah, that's cool. And then I'd know where it was heading. And then other times I'd feel like, okay, I want to put some fire in here because it just needs it. If the melody can stand on its own, then I'm all for it. But if the melody starts to die, then, or like a lot of times, other things can take over too. Like if you got a solo section and the band starts off one way and then they're kind of lifting, that can carry the weight. You can hold back. But sometimes if the band just kind of is staying here, sometimes it needs a little fire at the end just to kick it in the nuts,
Yeah.
Well, it's important to play for the song and not be a selfish player, especially with such amazing talent. Everyone needs to give each other the proper space and just do what sounds right. It's not about always putting the fastest or the most intricate lick. It's about the right lick for the right part, for the right song. some of the best guitar players out there. My favorites, like, you know, people like Tony Iommi or whatnot. He just plays the right. It just seems to hit the right note. Or David Gilmour, he just hits the right note. He could do the solo. Could be 2 notes, and it feels like it's, you know, more valuable than, you know, something that's just all shredding the whole time. You know, and sometimes the shredding works too. It just all circumstantial.
Yeah, I was listening to Flying High again the other day, and it was on the radio, and I want to say that solo, the solo itself has no bending. It's all like this classical thing. The whole, maybe I got to hear it again, but it's like, I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I've always seemed to be bending notes, like bending in or out or over bending, trying to hit, like, you know, an extra high note. But that solo is like, that's killer, man. It's just like just comes and attacks you like knives, you know.
Yeah.
That's a cool song too.
Yeah, I was
I wish
curious
I would've
about
got-
your bends, and I noticed you use. I thought I saw an interview you were saying that you're using the stainless steel frets. You know,
Yeah.
Is that affected your? You know, is that helped like with the vibrato and all that as far as like?
It's only because at first I wasn't sure about it because I thought it might change the tone a little bit, because nickel is definitely a softer wood, and maybe, but it didn't change it. The fret wire that it's Dunlop fret wire, and it feels good. It lasts longer than nickel because it's not as soft. That was the reason, because I would, after a couple tours on a guitar, you'd get it refretted, and then a couple tours it would be needing a fret job again, planing. And so that Vivian is one that turned me on to this guy, Bruce Nelson. He makes his own guitars. In fact, he built me a guitar last year that's insane, and it reminds me, I still owe him a little money on that. But I was playing Vivian's guitar, and I was like, dude, these frets are incredible. It's like, he goes, this guy, he does it. And also John Sir does great frets too, by the way. But this guy, Bruce Nelson, did a couple of my Les Pauls, and he talked me into the fret wire. He goes, it won't change your tone. Check this out. Here it is. And it's good.
Nice.
Awesome. We should wrap this up pretty soon. Beforehand, I wanted to see if Sydney Taylor had any more questions before we go.
I mean, I'm pretty good. I mean, I love the new Dead Daisies record. I think it's fantastic. I love Glenn, and I think that he's just really a perfect match for the group. And I'm excited to see what you guys do in the future. You know, I know you guys just released the record, so it's not on the list, you know, right now of getting another thing out there. But I'm sure you guys are gonna keep going out in the future. And I'm looking forward.
We worked on some music over the summer that in LA, it kind of cooled down for a while, and Glenn and I started getting together, banging around some ideas. And I will say that we've got some stuff started that's really cool. I know I just spoke to David. He's been working on some stuff. We're just gonna, of course, we've got Tommy Clafettos now on drums, which we're really excited about. And Tommy just played on an upcoming one of the songs that's going to be a single. They're going to do a proper like single release, and I shouldn't say what it is because they might want it to be a surprise or whatever. But Tommy came in and played on it, and the track is just kicking. It's great, and Tommy's he's probably one of the heaviest drummers out there right now. I think he is. He definitely made this even more heavy, and with Glenn's bass and him together, it's insanity. So we want to play it live. We want to get this stuff. We want to get on the road, or at least, I mean, I'll be happy just getting in rehearsal again. We had rehearsed in October for a week just to go through the songs, and it was awesome. But it's more fun when it's like, that there's going to be some dates starting after,
Well, didn't you originally, you guys, because the record was finished obviously you said you guys recorded it in France, so it was finished pre-pandemic, and then you guys had some dates lined up for the fall, but obviously with the world that didn't work out. So
yeah, it was fortunately we got the thing done, wrapped up before COVID, because I couldn't imagine us coming. The record would have been different, you know, at that we would have had to stop, because I mean, speaking for myself, I was so freaked out about this. You know, it was like I was thinking about it today. I was like outside, I'm thinking, man, is it in the air? What you know, nobody knew what was going on with this thing, and it would have not been the same record. But we wrapped it up, and then pandemic happened, and like everything stopped, and we pushed everything back till this year, which has now been pushed most of this year. I think we have stuff still on the books, and we will play live this year, even if it's just in the US. We'll do some gigs, but we have dates in Europe starting in July or so, and then it goes kind of off and on through the end of the year. We had Japan cancel already. We canceled a European tour already. So we're just excited about, you know, promoting the record, getting out there and playing it and featuring it. And you know, we worked really hard with John and Marco to build, you know, a foundation, and those guys are great. You know, who knows what happens? Maybe we all go on tour together, you know. We'll see what happens, but it'll be a great opportunity for all of us to play these songs live as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Doug. I really appreciate the time. You've been very courteous. Kept John here way longer than expected, but I really appreciate all the stories and stuff.
It's payback for my missing the last one. I'm so sorry, guys. I apologize to all three of you. So basically, you know, as a musician, I got my house, you know, I got my house in 97. I've been living since 97. I've been living in this house, and I've always wanted to like renovate it and redo it, and never, either I didn't have the money or I didn't have the time, but it never lined up. And finally, you know, I got a loan. I took some money out of the house and got a loan to do the project. And then I was like, because of COVID, I might as well do it. But it took a lot longer, and I was moving back in, which I'm so happy to be back in. It's like a whole brand new house, and it's just amazing. But I was, the day of our interview, I was in the midst of moving, and I couldn't think of anything except getting one more box out of the other house that I was renting. And then I was like, started to think, wait a minute, I have that interview. Was that today? And I lost track of the day it was. And I felt really bad. I told John, please tell those guys I'm so sorry about that, you know? So I wanted to make sure that today I was on time, which I wasn't. So I apologize for that.
You just wanted to put a scare. It's rock and roll. You know, you wanted to give us a scare. Fashionably late.
I had a great conversation with you guys. I really appreciate your kind words and the stories and everything. It was really a cool interview. I hope people will enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody will. So yeah, again, thank you very much. And I want to thank Sydney Taylor and Alex Bouks for being here too, helped me out with this. And
thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
And you know, we look forward to seeing you on the road. Hopefully with the Dead Daisies sometime. You know, like you said, after the summertime here, that'd be really great. And yeah, just like and subscribe to our channel. And would you want to say something?
No, I was going to say I definitely will, and I will follow you guys on Instagram, and also check out the Dead Daisies socials, especially they just opened up for people that might be interested, they opened up a merch store and got some cool stuff in there, and all the news and everything is from thedeaddaisies.com. You can check it out.
And also just make sure you let Glenn Hughes know that we all said hello and that we love his work, and look forward to seeing him live.
I always want to throw it out there. I have my own podcast, so if you ever want to come on for a chat, you're 100% free to do so. I always like to discuss different topics and everything, so you're more than welcome anytime.
I would love that, Sydney. Thank you. Just if you could hit up John or whoever, and we'll set up. You know, obviously we covered a lot of ground, so
so maybe in a little bit, but yeah, you're always welcome on, even if we want to discuss, you know, a specific band or something that you're a fan of too. We can definitely do something that
Yeah, she
route
does a
too.
really, really great podcast. It's definitely definitely worth checking out for sure.
Hope to
Right
hear
on,
another
man.
Burning Rain record too.
Yeah,
Actually, last record was
those.
fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, we it's everything's on the back burner right now because Glenn and I really want to focus on this. What this is it's a definite priority, and we like I said, we had a blast making it when we first started the interview. I said we had a blast making it, and we did, man. It was a really good time for us. We bonded like a family, and we really, people ask me like, how would you describe the record? I would say it's heavy, vibey, groovy. It's deep, but it was also it's like you can tell it's got a vibe. It's like of that time. So and it's pre-COVID, so you get the feeling of now we've got COVID all in our. I mean, not we don't have it in our system, but we've lived through it.
We have
And
the
now
trauma of COVID.
the trauma of COVID.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
songs will be different. They'll maybe they'll be better. Maybe they'll be like, after this lockdown, when we get released, it'll be like just going crazy, and musical, the music will just explode. Who knows? But for now, we're glad this record's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, great. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
guys.
Yeah.
All right,
Doug.
guys. Well,
Thanks.
Totally
be
appreciate
safe.
it.
Talk to you later.
Okay.
All right,
Take
soon as
care.
possible.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye, Sydney. Bye, Alex.
Yep. See you.
Yep.